The International Monetary Fund leadership is meeting in Washington this weekend for their annual spring meeting. On the agenda, global taxes on the world banks. Is this a good idea or just another way for the big banks to create an economic world order? Well, joining me to help figure that out is radio host Alex Jones. So, Alex, the IMF is proposing to tax the profits and pay of some of the world's largest banks. Now, these are the same greedy bankers that got us into the financial crisis in the first place. So, I mean, what's wrong with this idea?
Well, this story is one of the biggest and most important in the world, and I'm very honored to be here with you. Back during the Copenhagen Treaty in November and December, the central banks of the G20 openly said this will be a world government run by private Anglo-American, U.S., British, and EU bankers, and that they wanted the global carbon tax to fund them. So that's one of the taxes. Now they've also proposed, and that was originally in the treaty, that they would have a global financial VAT tax on all financial transfers, on all financial institutions, not just banks, and that the private J.P. Morgan, Chase, Goldman Sachs, and other mega banks will be able to shut down their competition. And actually, the Texas Banking Association, in an editorial yesterday, the president came out and said basically what I'm saying, and we have the London Guardian. When you actually read the fine print in the article about this G20 document that came out a few days ago, they state that this will be selectively enforced against whoever they wish, and that they'll be able to basically do whatever they want, and that trillions of dollars over the next decade will be paid to the IMF and World Bank and then into the coffers, not of a bailout, they call it a bailout, it's more than a bailout, a robbery to these mega banks that are the source of the world government. It is a private corporate global empire based in Europe, England, and the United States that has enslaved our nations and is now moving on to attempt to take over the rest of the planet. And so they've got a lot of different tracks they're using: the carbon taxes, the value-added taxes, the financial VAT tax. They're calling a fat tax, a financial VAT. And Gordon Brown is bragging about this, saying this is a global government, global governance, in his own words and speeches he's given over and over again in the last 2 months. So this is not my opinion. This is out in the open. But our media in the West particularly is saying, oh, this is going to get the rich bankers. This is going to show them the people won't have to pay bailouts anymore, when it's actually the opposite. This allows this banking cartel to create a world government that controls our nations through the G20 system. And simultaneously, Obama has national legislation that fits in to this international regime.
So, Alex, aren't you worried that if individual countries aren't left to punish the banks on their own, they simply won't do it? I mean, it was lax financial oversight that got us into this mess in the first place. So what makes you think that governments will pick up the slack if the IMF doesn't take it up?
Well, I mean, the IMF is legendary worldwide. It's a private holding company of the top 10 global banks worldwide. And I mean, they've looted every third world nation on the planet. They've raided Eastern Europe. They've raided Russia. They've raided country after country. And now they're doing to the West what they've done to the rest of the world. I mean, this is on record. It is Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan and the other top banks that have their regulators, their former alumni, their former presidents and CEOs in every position: Fed chairman, Treasury chairman, New York Fed chief. They are the people that engineered the banking collapse. That's why Goldman Sachs has now been indicted in the United States and is being indicted by other countries. So no, this is the very same group of criminals through the IMF and World Bank setting up a global Ponzi scheme. It's problem, reaction, solution. They create the crisis, then they offer the solution, giving them even more power. I mean, look, 2 months ago, all the Australian papers reported with the headlines, secret meeting of heads of 27 biggest banks with the G20 there, meeting secretly, hammering all this out. And now we have the Copenhagen Treaty. We now have the G20 plan that was leaked on Monday. We know exactly what they are doing. And this is a stealth economic operation to conquer the globe based on fiat currency. And so this is the maximum threat against all free humanity. And we have detailed articles up at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com where we boil all this down and show all their own statements and documents, they admit this is world government by unelected bankers taking over the planet. This is so important to oppose, and I'm very thankful that RT is covering this.
Alex, I want to really quickly talk about the specifics of this tax. I mean, how exactly is it going to work in practice? You kind of touched on this a little bit already about who you think is going to benefit from the tax, but where do you think the money is going to go?
Well, we know. Look, private banks have taken over the town where I live, Austin, and almost all of our tax money is now paid to them in fraudulent debt. They're putting a $2.6 billion carbon tax. I mean, here's the local news in Austin that they just passed last night on Earth Day. Earth Day is Global Eugenics Slavery Day. They say what it's going to do. Trillions and trillions of dollars on all financial transactions, and it allows the mega global regulators run by the big banks to go in and to take over their competition. In fact, right here, I have the head of the Texas Banking Association, Eric Sandberg, in an editorial that was in Texas papers that came out 2 days ago on April 21st, saying exactly what I'm saying. We have healthy, real banks that lend and do a good job. Texas has the healthiest banks in the country. They're coming in saying that they can take those over. See, they're going to take over healthy banks and with government power, feed them into their control system.
Well, Alex Jones, as always, you have a great way of using your words, and we appreciate your analysis.